Good evening, all, and good afternoon from where my guest is. My name's Adam Deval, the mental health warrior, and we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So we'll try and watch our language, but with no promises there. Anyway, I am joined by Guy Brilando. He, he's got a lengthy bio, so I'm just going to read just a couple of it because I'm like, wow. Um, he is a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. Am I right there?
Yeah.
He's a former F-16 fighter pilot. He's a former captain with Southwest Airlines. He's a best-selling author on Amazon with his book Discovering Your Authentic Truth, which that sounds powerful just there. He's got he's master's certified in NLP. He's a master's in Aviation Business Management.
Yeah.
Am I right there? Yeah. The last bit is C6 and founding member with Silly by Design and dear friends with the owners, able to retire 7 years early due to income generated from Silly and move to the dream location in Keystone, Colorado.
That's right.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Adam.
You are most welcome, Guy. Now, I'm going to, for everyone that's tuning in on whether it's Facebook, YouTube, please get this shared because we're about stopping the stigma. That's all we're here for. I'm going to start with quick fire questions for you. So I'm going to start with, I don't know, tea or coffee?
Say again. I'm sorry.
Tea or coffee?
T-O?
Tea or coffee?
I'm sorry. I'm not understanding. I'm missing something here.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Tea, like a brew. Tea or coffee? Tea or coffee?
Coffee. My bad. I'm a coffee guy. I can't help it. I like my coffee black, strong, and I drink it all day long.
Brilliant. The next one is, do you prefer the air or do you prefer the land?
Wow. I love it all. I don't know. I love being in the air. You know, I've been a pilot for many years, and there's nothing like that freedom of being in the air, but I also love being around God's beauty on the ground. So I don't know if I can make a distinction between the two.
Fair enough. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
I thought you would. I thought you'd choose that. And the last one is, I don't know, jazz or pop?
Probably jazz, actually. I'm a big blues guy. I love blues. But I love all genres. I'm not too much into the rap thing, but I mean, I'll listen from classical to country to jazz and blues and a lot of rock.
Brilliant. Now we'll just dive right in. For everyone that has never come across you before, don't know who you are, just tell us a little bit about who Guy Brilando is.
Oh, sure. Well, and I want to welcome all your viewers. I'm very blessed to have this platform to be able to share a little bit about me, but obviously this is really about helping other people. I mean, mental health warrior, obviously this is about getting into and helping people understand that they've got the opportunity to help themselves, but a lot of people find themselves stuck. I grew up in Chicago. I lived there for about 21 years. I was very much interested in the stars and astronomy. After 3 years of mechanics, thermodynamics, calculus, I started to realize that maybe that wasn't my cup of tea, if you will. And so I began flying. I transferred to a school in Florida, Daytona Beach. It's called Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. It's a worldwide famous aviation school. And while I was there, I fell into the ROTC, which is a Reserve Officer Training Corps for the Air Force. And that's what I did for 20 years. I graduated from college and went into the Air Force, where I flew F-16 fighters for 20 years. Had a great time, lived over in Korea, lived over in Germany, which is where I met and married my wife 30 years ago. And then we also lived in Italy And then we moved over into Phoenix, Arizona here in the States. So I was outside the States for over 8 years. I've been to England several times and got to see the world from a different perspective, which was really neat. And then we got to Phoenix. I finished out my Air Force career there in my last 10 years. And then I transferred over, as you mentioned, Adam, to Southwest Airlines, where I retired last August as a captain there. During that process of while I was in Southwest, and this is where this is going to kind of start molding into how maybe we can help other people. I found myself stuck because those 20 years that I was a fighter pilot, when people ask me, what do you do? I said, well, I fly F-16 fighters, but it's not what I do. It's who I am. I'm a fighter pilot. It became my identity. So as I left that profession and then went over, even though I was still flying, it's a totally different environment, totally different flying. And I was starting to find myself a little lost after a few years. And I do a lot of reading. And one of my favorite books that I read every year is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And one night in December, I was driving home from work late at night. And I realized how stuck I was, that I no longer knew what my definitive purpose was in life. And that set me on a journey, a couple-year journey, where I eventually came across somebody I had seen once before, and her name is Nirka, and she does transformational work. She's a master transformational coach, NLP master, if you're familiar with neuro-linguistics programming. And in that process, in fact, the very first course I took with her, I had a major transformation and realized that the stuckness and all these revolving door results that I was getting was all rooted in anger from when I was just 3 years old. And I was able to release that, recontextualize it, and then that set me on this journey of helping others overcome their challenges. So that's a little bit of the background.
Wow. Did what we've all just started, I'm already saying wow. So let's talk about like your educational life, growing up. What was, because obviously we all knew, we always have these strange imaginations, strange dreams about what we want to be when we grow up. Was your passion to be in the air?
No. Well, in some ways, I just never saw myself actually being a pilot, especially not an F-16 fighter pilot for sure. But I've always been gravitated towards the heavens. So I built my own telescope when I was in high school. I would go down to the planetarium all the time. I ground my own mirror, which is a lot of work if you've never done that. So that was kind of my aspiration, was more along the stars. I'd also see myself as a high school teacher. I saw myself as an astronaut. I saw myself, when you're young, your vision is wide open. You don't have limitations. The limitations that we have today as adults are all self-imposed. We put those limitations on ourselves. So when I was younger, I didn't have any limitations. The field was wide open. My dad was I know England or United Kingdom is very big into cycling. My dad was a world-renowned cyclist and two-time Olympian, 48 and 52. He was the chief engineer for Schwinn bicycles there in Chicago. He's a remarkable guy, and he always just said, hey, no matter what you do, just make sure you do your very best at it. And he allowed me to explore all these different avenues.
Brilliant. So go on then. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
So I don't know. That's why it took me 6 years of college to figure that out. I'm not dumb, but it was all because I didn't know the direction I really wanted to go into. I did start flying on the side, and that was, again, something my dad offered me. And then when I moved the schools down to Florida, and I went into the ROTC detachment, I found my home. I knew it. As soon as I walked in there, I said, this is where I need to be. That gave me that direction that was absent in my life up until that point.
Fantastic. So, obviously, I don't know what they are in the States, because here in the UK, the GCSEs, so I don't know what they are in the States. What is it? When you graduate high school?
Yeah, well, when After are you referring to the ROTC that I mentioned? Or I'm sorry.
No. When you graduate high school, you come away with GCSEs.
Oh yeah,
in the UK.
Yeah. So you get the high school diploma, and then I just started college right after.
Oh, brilliant. So obviously, what did you do in there?
Well, I started
in
out.
College.
I started out studying in physics, desiring to become an astrophysicist, and it just got a little bit too much. But I really fell in love with the flying, so that's why I switched schools and got my certificates. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So, obviously, with the flying, what was the first plane you actually flew?
The first plane I ever flew was a Cessna 150, a little single propeller airplane, 2-seater, very small airplane.
Wow. No anxiety there for the very first time?
Yeah, I had an instructor with me, obviously, but I soloed with about 9 hours, which is pretty. Today's standards, that would be pretty early. On my second solo, I had an engine failure, and so I had no experience and just a whole lot of, oh my God, let's make this thing work out. And I was able to land the airplane, no damage, but that was an eye-opening experience. But it also built a lot of belief in self-esteem and confidence in myself that I could handle such a unusual situation with just about 10 hours in the airplane of flying time.
Wow. See, I already predicted my death, and that is going to be either a panic attack or a heart attack with the amount of times my kids scare me or my partner scares me. So I've already predicted it. So God help what other people's are going to be. But anyway, that's another conversation. So obviously, when you when you was traveling the world, because my partner, she really wants to go traveling. She really does. And I can't provide that because I've no vehicle. But anyway, when you first got into the can I call it the military?
Yeah, the military, right.
Yeah. So what was the first impression when you first got signed up, when you first applied?
It's an interesting question. I don't know. It just kind of unfolded as it went. I didn't join the ROTC I didn't join while I was in college and joined the ROTC. I didn't have at that time, I wanted to be a pilot, but I wasn't thinking about fighters at that time. And here comes another one of those limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. It wasn't until my second year there that some friends I was hanging out with says, Guy, you can be a fighter pilot if you want to. And I'm like, what? I can do that? So again, we put self-imposed limitations on ourselves all the time. And it took somebody outside of myself to reframe it for me, to allow me to see that possibility of becoming a fighter pilot. And then I go into pilot training, Air Force pilot training in Texas. And it was just like, I didn't have any expectations. I didn't understand really what I was getting myself into, to be honest. I just took one day at a time and just did my very best with it. By the time I graduated from college in the ROTC detachment, I was the #1 cadet. I was in charge of the whole detachment, over 500 different cadets and stuff. And then same kind of my concept, when I went to pilot training, I'm just going to give my very best every single day. And I finished out being awarded with an F-16 fighter. So it worked out.
Absolutely. And you just touched on there, like we take ourselves for granted sometimes.
Absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
Because, that is a question I could spend a whole hour on in itself. Why is that? Why do we end up where we are? Why do we make the decisions that we do in life? And if you don't mind, I'll just share with my book right here. It's Discovering Your Authentic Truth. It's available on Amazon, so you can get it anywhere in the world. But one of the things that I learned in this process is that what happens to us in those ages 0 to 7 is monumental for the rest of our lives. And the reason why we put self-limiting beliefs on ourselves and we do these results that we, or get the results that we do, is because of this early on programming. It could be hearing it from a teacher or from your parents or who's ever your upbringing, or your peers. Oh, you can't do that. You suck. You can never achieve that.
Yeah.
Hey, money doesn't grow on trees. You'll never amount to anything. Those little things that adults say to children and that children say to each other has lasting impact on us. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. There was never a bigger fallacy than that little verb or verbiage.
Great.
I mean, words absolutely have incredible power. And when we're in those early stages, we're in the theta brain waves, so you don't have a filter. So as a young child, everything is being absorbed by the mind, and you can't filter it out. It tries to make reason for it, but I mean, that would get me down a whole nother diatribe about the prime directives of the subconscious mind and how the subconscious mind is always trying to protect the body and your mental well-being. But we get these limited beliefs instilled in us at a very early age. So let's say you're a 3-4-year-old and you're painting and you're having a really good time with your artwork, your watercolors, whatever. The mom steps away for a moment and you start painting the white wall with these, because hey, if I'm painting on this little piece of paper, the big wall is even better. So I start painting and I make all these colorful drawings all over the wall, right? Mom comes in, she's like, whoa. Dad comes home from work, he's like, whoa, what is this, right? And there you are at 3 or 4 years old, experiencing anger for the very first time, maybe some shame, maybe some doubt. Well, if the parents don't handle that properly, that can have a lasting impact. The mind is now trained to say, don't step out of the box, don't be creative, don't explore, because if you do, you're going to disappoint other people that are important to you.
Yeah.
So that is a lot of the crust of what I'll go into in the book and stuff, but that's what happens. Growing up, we get to a point where, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, I remember that because obviously I could say I'm guilty of actually stopping my son at the time drawing on the wall as well. I'm admitting that because obviously I didn't understand it, and he's got autism, believe it or not, and also he's very creative, and he was about 16 months old, up to about almost 2 years old. He was drawing on the wall, and we're thinking, what the hell is he drawing? And then it took us over an hour, just stood there. Obviously, we dealt with the kids, and then we just stood there thinking, what the hell has he drawn? And it turned out it was a child's version of London Bridge.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how did you handle that situation?
We praised him.
There you go.
So then what we did is that weekend, we went out, got loads of plain paper, and we actually stuck it all across the wall. And we said, go mad.
So can you see the two dynamics? That is a perfect example, Adam. I'm so glad that with this discussion came up. So on one hand, a child is suppressed. On the other hand, they're encouraged to blossom. Can you see how that can affect different aspects of the person's life as they age?
Yeah.
Now he's a memory of what happened back there 16 months old or whatever it may be, 3 years old.
Yeah, now he's 9 years old, and he's forever bringing us his drawings. And it got to that point. I actually shared it on Facebook and LinkedIn at one point, and where he actually drew Super Mario. He sketched Super Mario, and I thought, and I need to send that to Nintendo. So I did that, and he got some freebies from it.
Really?
Yeah.
So that encouragement is so important.
Yeah. And obviously, we believe he's going to be an architect anyway, with his skills. That's
awesome.
But anyway. But yeah, I want to ask you regarding mental health-wise. Hello, Kate, on Facebook. Please share this in awareness. I'm going to ask you guys, what does mental health mean to you?
Well, it could be, when you just say mental health, you got physical health, And you can have good physical health, you can have poor physical health. So physical health is just talking about the health of the body. Mental health would be how healthy are you in the ways you're thinking and the way you're being able to perform. So obviously you can have poor mental health. You can have depression, anxiety, PTSD, all these other limiting or poor health areas. Or you can have great mental health where somebody's super creative and they encourage other people and they're making the world a better place by being better themselves. And that would be a positive state of mental health. So yeah, it can be anywhere in between.
Yeah, because last year I spoke to an Australian. I think I can't remember whereabouts in Australia he was. I need to double check that. But I was on Zoom with him for a good 2, maybe 3 hours, and it took me 2 hours to answer what does mental health mean to me. Like I was saying what it is and how it can affect us, but I weren't actually answering what does it mean to me. And I believe that's one of the biggest questions people need to ask themselves. Because I believe we've all got mental health. It doesn't matter who you are. We've all got it, some sort of mental health. So I came to a solution that it has a problem with our mindset. And you're like, right, okay, keep going. Then it turned out mental health is our mindset that controls the way we think, act, and behave. And that's my description of it.
Yeah, it absolutely. Mindset is everything.
Absolutely.
There's billions and billions of bits of information out there that's coming into the mind. The subconscious mind sees everything, forgets nothing. At least that's what we're told. But the conscious mind is all that information is filtered by something called the reticular activating system, the RAS. And so your conscious mind is very limited in what it sees and what it hears and what it smells and all the other senses that we've got. There's 5 of them basically, right? The olfactory, the taste, smell, vision, hearing. So your conscious mind can't absorb all that information and make sense of it. So we're limited in what we can see.
Yeah.
And then how people interpret that information goes right into your mindset. Yeah, absolutely. So how do you change a mindset? There's lots of different ways to be able to do it, but I think the number one thing that everybody can tap into is reading good books, surrounding yourself with positive minded people that paint a bigger picture rather than being around the news, for instance, which is
I was going to mention that.
Build you up and make you better. Right. So that's a big challenge, right? I mean, most people are inundated with the news 24/7. They flip on the TV and they watch the news and get caught up on the current events, right? But the challenge is it's all put in an entertaining way so that it holds the attention of the person, and we are attracted to the negative, unfortunately, the average person.
Exactly.
And that just takes your mindset and puts it down into the gutter. So you got to protect yourself.
Yeah, because obviously every time my partner, I haven't watched the news in months. I haven't, and this is why I'm always smiling, which people have noticed that I smile a lot more. I don't know why. I just let them get on with it. But anyway, when my partner watches it, she starts to get depressed. Well, obviously she's experienced an anxiety attack recently.
Absolutely.
Which obviously that's another story. But she kept throwing at me, like even last night she went, I can't do this, I can't do that. So I went, right, okay, let's do a strategy. So I wrote I can't on a piece of paper. It's like, right, so can you see that? It's like, yeah. Now I gave her the piece of paper and I went, rip it, and she went, rip it where? In between the N and the T. And she went, why? I'm like, just do it. So she did, and I'm like, so what does it say now? I can't. I'm like, there you go. That's just one of the methods you can do.
Yes.
Yeah, another one, I did it on another podcast, where you actually write the word depression. If you are depressed, just write it and then, right, okay, right, we got it. So what we do now, like, make it into a sentence. So we can't make it into a sentence. I'm like, are you sure? Then and I said, right, okay, take the I. So they did. So they crossed out the I in depression. Then they put, write the word pressed. They did that, took the letters out. They put on. I pressed on. And that's just from depression.
I hadn't heard that one before. I like it.
Yeah, try it. Try it. Seriously, try it. Write the word depression and then take the letters.
I like it.
And it comes up, I pressed on. That's just a new one. Right, going back to it, we're gonna just sort of keep pointing to me, saying, "Talk about me from your bio," and that's the Lions Club. What's that all? What is
it's
it?
The Lions Club. We have various different organizations that are volunteer organizations that help their communities, and Lions Club is one of those. And I was active with them at one point, speaking for them, and that. I haven't really touched on that too much in several years. But it's a community club.
Fair enough. Your Toastmasters. Gosh, that's right up your street. That's right up your street.
That's worldwide. Toastmasters is about overcoming your fear of public speaking. And I do a lot of public speaking, and I wanted to get much better at delivering my message. And that's the other thing that Toastmasters does. It is able to you're very time compressed when you're giving your speeches. And it's very easy for people to get in and just start going on and on and on and on. And the listener is like, where are you going with this type of thing, right? So you're a good speaker. It is on point, stays on point, and finishes on point. And that's one of the things that Toastmasters is able to help with as well. So I really enjoyed that. I did that for 2 or 3 years. Got my different ratings and stuff, and I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was great training.
Brilliant. Comment on Facebook, Kate Marsh. I got PTSD. I find things to take my mind off things, and it seems to work. You can do things if you put your mind to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, PTSD is a real challenge. In the work that I talk about in the book, PTSD is not one that we tackle very often. It's going to be case dependent because in order to do the work, so basically if somebody, I'm glad this kind of came up, in order to do this work, you're talking about programming ones and zeros into the subconscious mind back when we're young. And now you've been living it, say you're 30, 40 years old, 50 years old, you've been living with it for your whole life. And this really drives a lot of your results that you get in life, believe it or not. So to go back and try to change that programming in a way that's no longer serving you, because that old programming is no longer serving you now because you're not getting the results that you want. PTSD is obviously not a result that you want. Now, the PTSD, let's say spousal abuse or from war or something, from a first responder, a situation that they were put in and they got the PTSD from that. Obviously, the 0 to 7 years old part is not necessarily related to the PTSD, but how we handle it all could possibly be. So we would still, there's 2 different ways to approach that. One of them would be just to address the PTSD issue itself. But even deeper would be still to go back and rewrite that original programming and then go in and handle the PTSD. So one involves a lot more work than the other. But in PTSD, for instance, because this is a great example, let's say I'm in battle and I got shot down, I got captured by the enemy, and oh my God, my life was horrific, and then I got rescued. All right, so now I have flashbacks from all this happening over there, and I keep replaying it in my mind, and I can't erase it. But what if you could go back to that moment in time and not see it through your own eyes, but be an observer, completely detached, looking down on the event and being able to release it that way? That is something in NLP called timeline therapy. It's very powerful and it works. The challenge with PTSD and dealing with people with PTSD with this type of work is that they are so stuck in first position, which means they can only see it through their eyes. They relive the experience over and over and over again. They're ingraining it deeper and deeper and deeper into their mind. To be able to break them out of that, to get them to go out of first position into what we call third position and become that observer looking down, That's the challenge with dealing with PTSD people, because it's very difficult for them to break out. But when it's done properly, there's a lot to the science and how this all works. But when done properly, I believe it can have very quick and immediate results once that transition happens. It's working up to get that person out of that first position, teaching them how to let go of being in first position and becoming the observer. That's the trick. That's the art behind that type of therapy. But I think it's very, very powerful, and it definitely can work.
Going back to the flashbacks, would you say if you keep getting these flashbacks, would it be CPTSD over PTSD in general? That's a question from me.
I don't know, because I don't know what is the first one?
Complex PTSD.
I'm not familiar. Couldn't help you on that. But what I do know is that it's all going to revert back to whatever you want to label it, however you label it. It's still going to go back to how it's coded in the subconscious mind. And in order to release it, you got to change the coding in the subconscious mind.
Complex PTSD is practically repeated trauma.
Okay.
What's happened in your life. So like getting these flashbacks.
Okay. So yeah, it's still going to go back to the very first time it ever happened, understanding not the story behind it, but understanding positive aspects that the mind can learn from, but also allow it to release it, and not use it as a governing guidance for how you run your life. So you release it. It just goes, and you'll still remember it, but it doesn't have that emotional impact on you any longer. The emotional aspect of it is gone. And once that emotional aspect of it's gone, you're free.
Do you know what? I'm going to take me for prime example, because I only do these videos out of experience myself, because I've lived it. I still remember like it was only yesterday. I'm 30 years old now. I feel about 80. But in my heart, I feel about 16. I don't know. I just go along with it myself. But I still feel like it was yesterday where I was trying to ride that bike at 3 years old, and I was punched in the face by my own dad because I was unable to ride the bike.
There you go.
But I don't let that affect me now. 2 years ago, it affected me because I attempted suicide just 2 years ago. But now I'm here. I'm doing podcasts practically daily now. And here we go. So I'm living proof that PTSD can be controlled.
Wow, that's a lot right there. What was, if you don't mind sharing, kind of what was going on during that time when you attempted suicide?
Well, go back to why I was punched in the face, because I was unable to ride back because I was diagnosed with dyspraxia, which obviously affects the coordination.
Okay.
And so I couldn't ride the bike, and I can admit right now I didn't ride the bike until I was 9 years old. 9, close to 10 years old. But when I didn't want to die 2 years ago. I didn't. But without giving how I attempted suicide, because I don't want to try and trigger someone.
Exactly. What I'm getting at is the decisions that were being made, maybe starting a year prior, 6 months prior, 3 months prior. What led you to those? What was that? Trauma.
Yeah, trauma of all that pain, of just all that pain, all that anger. And I was getting about these 10 different voices in my head saying, your family won't miss you. Your kids won't miss you. Death's the right answer. So go ahead and let's do it. Those were, even though people was talking to me, to my face, they were ringing me up, they were texting me saying, what's going on? I even put a Facebook post up, practically like a death message saying, I need to go. That's it. So these voices was encouraging me to put that post up. So I did. But then I described that attempt as a successful failure.
There you go.
That's how I describe it. And now I'm here today.
I wish I could find it real quick. In the book, I've got statistics on suicide. It's a major issue, obviously. One of the girls that I worked with that led me to wanting to write this book, her name was Catalea in the book. That's not a real name. That's a fiction name. But she was 16 years old, and she felt she was a complete failure. And I'm going to explain this story so that your viewers can understand a little bit more about what I'm talking about with this coding in the subconscious mind. So, and this is also going to lead into language, because just the self-talk is the most powerful talk you ever have.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding and being aware of your self-talk is extremely important. So when you're having all those voices talking to you, that's a perfect example of being very stuck in first position. Your other friends outside of you, as the observer, could see a different picture than you were seeing. So you were in first position, they're in third position looking at your situation. So that's a perfect example. So with this lady, Catalea, this girl, 16 years old, when we met the first time, I didn't care about how she tried to commit suicide. I didn't find out until 3 months later what she had actually done. All I knew is that something in this girl's life led her to the decision to try to take her life. And it didn't take long in this one very first meeting that we had, and some of the message traffic between her mom and I, to realize what the root cause of her attempted suicide was all about. And it was really centered around the mom. And a communication breakdown between the mom and the daughter. Well, how do you go to the mom and say, Mom, it's your fault? You're not going to be very receptive to that, right? So I took a different approach. And one of the things that I did is I sat the family down, and we did a little test, an exercise, if you will, to figure out how they communicate between each other. And the results of that test showed clearly that the girl was very touchy-feely. She's what we call kinesthetic and very emotional, and that feelings and stuff like that. Where the mom came back very audio digital, which is very process orientated, more checklist orientated. So, for instance, if the mom said, "Catalea, you need to be home by 10 p.m. tonight," and Catalea's like, "Yeah, sure, Mom, I'll be home by 10. And then Catalea walks in the door at 10:10, 10 minutes late. "Hey, Mom, I'm home. How you doing? This is great. Had a great night, da-da-da-da." Meanwhile, the mom has been staring at her watch for the last 10 minutes, going, "Okay, there goes another minute. There goes another minute. Catalea, you're not home. What the frick? Where are you?" So Catalea walks in the door all happy, thinking she's home at 10 o'clock. What's 10 minutes, right? "I'm home at 10 o'clock. And the mom's like, "You're 10 minutes late." And she starts laying in on Catalea. So there's this communication issue going on. And you do that over the course of a lifetime. Catalea is finally at a point in her life where I disappoint everybody around me. I'm not worthy. I don't bring any value to people around me. I can't go on like this. She tries to commit suicide. So we have this very first meeting, and I'm explaining to her how this process of what I do is different. And she starts bawling. She's like, "This is so different from all the different therapists I've gone to and everything that everybody's trying to make me do, because they always have me relive it. You're not having me relive it." And I said, "Exactly. We don't want you to relive it. We want you to let go of it." And so we did. The power of this story was that after we did this little communication discussion, which was about two and a half hours long, just Catalea and I were together, and in 10 minutes, broke her completely of it. Completely, because she was so ready to let it go at that point. We did an exercise followed by another exercise, and it was erased. We didn't just scratch the record that was playing over and over in her head. We literally took it out and smashed it and inserted a new one.
Brilliant.
And that's the power of the work. And that's why traditional therapy, you see, you got, when you think about the results you get in life, right? You get results. What's driving the results? And those are the actions you take, right? The actions you take gives you the results. What's driving the actions? Well, it's your behaviors, your beliefs that drive your actions that get you results. And in my opinion, that's where traditional therapy and psychology focuses way too much time on those behavior and beliefs. Because guess what? There's another deeper level that leads to those beliefs, limiting beliefs or non-limiting beliefs, your actions and your results. And that's called your core values. And those core values are what's established in those first 7 years of living. So it drives your decisions, your behaviors, your actions, how you deal with situations as they arise in your life is because of those core values established early on in your first 7 years of living.
Exactly. And you're right. And that's, you touched on actions there, which is fantastic because action does speak louder than words.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, in NLP, in Neuro-Linguistics Program, 55% of your communication is in your body language. 33 or 35% or something like that is in your tonality. And only 7% are the actual words you say. Yet those words are still have power. So it's very important to understand the verbiage you're using, especially with somebody in those delicate first 7 years of their living.
Yeah. I'm actually going to give you some words here, and I want you to tell me like what you think the meaning of these words are.
Hopefully I understand it. Okay.
Okay.
Not rehearsed, ladies and gentlemen.
We haven't rehearsed this. We can put that right on there. We haven't rehearsed. The word no.
How do you spell it?
No. N-O. N-O.
No?
Yeah.
No. Okay. The word no. What about the word no?
It actually means next opportunity.
There you go. Next opportunity.
The word fail.
We call that, Adam, is a reframe. That's known as a reframe. How do you reframe the word no? Next opportunity. I love that. Okay, sales. What's sales?
Fail.
Well, fails.
Fail.
Okay.
First attempt in learning.
Yeah, I like that.
By the way, guys, I think he's going to steal these, by the way, and put them on his post.
I'm writing them down.
Obviously, I'm giving you depression. That's all I can think from now on. Oh, fear.
Fear, for sure.
Fear. F-E-A-R. What do you think that is?
I had an acronym for it. You know, false evidence appearing real is probably the most popular one. I have my own acronym for it, and I can't even remember what it is now. It's been so long since I looked at it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what it is. False evidence appearing real.
Well, that gets into phobias. I mean, fear holds us back more than anything else. You know, one of the things you mentioned, I run a network marketing business. This is the name of the company, Sealy by Design. It's absolutely amazing. It does a lot of good work for people that have anxiety and mental depression and stuff like that as well. It works at those levels. But I just lost my train of thought on that. Where was I going? Oh, well, no, I lost my train of thought. I was talking about the industry of network marketing and the false evidence appearing real. My gosh, I just brain dumped. It'll come back.
It will.
It will.
It'll come back to you when you're not thinking about it. I've learned that. But yeah, let's talk about the certified master of the NLP. Now, first question is, what does NLP stand for?
NLP is neuro-linguistics, which is language. Neuro is the nervous system. Linguistics is the language aspect of it, programming. So listening to a person speak or how you speak yourself is telling you a lot about what's going on inside you. The body language is telling you a lot about what's going on inside you. You know, if somebody embarrasses you and you flush in the face, that's part of NLP because there's a physiological response to words or an action or something that happened, for instance. So it's neuro-linguistics programming. It was created by Richard Bandler and David Grinder back in the 70s. And they were observing basically therapists that had resounding effects in very short periods of time versus therapists that were taking years, or their client was seeing them for years and there's no real result. And they wanted to find out from a scientific standpoint of how these therapists were getting these tremendously quick results in a very short period of time. And what they what they were able to do was to quantify that, lay it all out, and they labeled it neurolinguistics programming.
Brilliant. So would you say you can read people?
In some ways, yeah, absolutely. Everyone can. It just depends on how aware you are. The greater your awareness to physical cues, the greater that you're going to understand where this person's coming from. Like if we're having this conversation and all of a sudden you do this and you kind of do that, well, I realize that we've broken rapport and I'm not relating the way that I should be. If you're leaning in, then it shows that there's maybe some interest and the rapport is a little bit deeper. So that is a way of reading people so that you can increase the level of communication. So that's all about rapport and building rapport. And a lot of that is through body language and building that rapport, mirror and matching. You know, if you're talking with somebody and they got their arms crossed or they're kind of doing this a lot or something like that, and you very subtly kind of just, you know, do this or do that, or you kind of do this and then you break and you're just matching what you're mirroring what they're doing with their body language, you're going to increase rapport. And that level of communication then increases as well. It's very powerful. So yeah, it is a form of reading people.
So does that mean you've just read me without me knowing?
Subconsciously, probably, because that's not my purpose here right now. So
Hey, I don't mind. It's all about doing it. It's all about putting it to the test. Because obviously I know someone else that can read people, and that's Alan Stevens. Have you come across him before?
No.
Oh, you need to. He's from Newcastle.
I know of him. I've never read his material or anything.
Oh, you need to. I need to connect you both. He is fantastic. He's fantastic. Alan Stevens. He hosts the Campfire Project.
The what project?
The Campfire.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. I'll connect you both. He's actually from Newcastle, Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, he is brilliant. He really is.
Great.
He's brilliant. Yeah, he's been on the show as well a few times. But yeah. Right. But yeah, just reading your bio, communication. That's probably what, if you think outside the box, that's what you talk about here. Communication is actually, and transformation is critical, and that's my headphone just fell out. But yeah. But yeah, transformation and communication, that's critical when it comes to these things.
Oh, and from a mental health standpoint, it's huge because we lie to ourselves all the time. Yeah. We tell ourselves stories that aren't true. We worry ourselves when most worries never come to pass. But you're so stuck. A person like that is so stuck in that first position. It's a challenge to break them out of it. But there are ways to do it, and especially if you're working one-on-one, it'd be a lot more difficult in a classroom session, or especially on a Zoom call and you got 100 people in there. But on a one-on-one, it's possible. Even a person in deep depression, to break them out of it, but it just takes a lot more effort from the guide to make that happen. But
absolutely. So the last question I've got for you is, what piece of advice, if you came across a student or someone who's just finished college or university and he wants to get up in the air, he wants to fly a plane for the very first time, what piece of advice would you actually give him?
Do it. I have a friend, Ted Greenfield's his real name. We were high school buddies, and he was always getting in trouble. And the guidance counselor's like, Ted, he had a rough life, parents, childhood, if you will, the environment that he grew up in, and it just created he got himself into trouble a lot. But the guidance counselor really liked Ted and took note of him. And one day he took Ted out flying in his private airplane. The guidance counselor was a pilot. And Ted stopped me in the hallway one day. Hey, guy, did you ever think about wanting to learn how to fly? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to. But it was way too expensive for a couple high school kids, right? So then I fall into my career and I'm flying, tens of thousands of hours now. And Ted still never flew an hour in his life. And I think it was about 54 years old or so, 55 years old. He's like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And now he's got a Facebook, a YouTube channel, over 50 and learning to fly. So it's never too early you got to be at least 16, but it's never too early or too late to pick up a dream, whether it's flying, whether you want to be a movie actor, whether you want to, just be a social worker and help out kids, or whatever it is, whatever that dream that's living within you. Once you understand that you're worthy and you bring a value that nobody else brings to this world, then allow that to blossom and just do it. And maybe you don't know how to just do it, but you just do it. You take the first step. For somebody that wants to learn to fly, I'd encourage them to go to that channel, because it's a channel primarily of all these old folks that want to learn how to fly and never did. Now they're doing it, So there's avenues out there and guidance to help you, whatever that dream is, to get you in that direction. So just do it.
Yeah. So my advice for everyone, literally everyone that's going to be tuning into this, if you're dreaming small and you wake up, get back to sleep, because you're not dreaming big enough.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right.
And on that note, all I've got to say is thank you, Guy. Thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it very much. I enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully somebody got something out of it. If they want to reach out to me, feel free. I'm on Facebook, Guy Brilando. My email is guybrilando@gmail.com. So pretty simple. The name's right there. Just reach out to me. I'd be happy to have a conversation and see if we can't help you. And I also encourage everybody to read this book. It's changed lives just in the reading of the book. It's powerful.
Brilliant. And thank you to everyone that's tuned in. Also, please share this with awareness, because we need to end this stigma and get people's stories out. And on that note, I'm going to end this podcast. I'm going to be shattered with what I'm about to say. But please tune in tomorrow, when I've got not one, not two, but 3 podcasts tomorrow. One at 8 p.m. when I've got the brilliant 17-year-old artist-songwriter Katie Blackwell. At 9:30, I've got the autistic advocate in Jimmy Clare. And at 10:30, I've got another musician in Fred Brown, but that's at 10:30. So I'm in for a late night tomorrow. Please tune in. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.